Hi, I'm Blake Rayhans.
And I'm Stacie Mallon.
And you are listening to the Optimized AF podcast.
We know life is hard. We're here to make it simple.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Optimized AF podcast. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. We are happy to be here again. Stacie?
Yes. And that was Blake, by the way. He missed his own introduction today. So I will introduce Blake. And this is
the
Stacie.
intro music takes care of that.
Yeah, we're good. We're closing in on the end of season 1. So
we're in
if
the
you don't know us now, I don't know what to tell you. And this episode is focused, it's a build on episode 1 that was really around our 3-part series on goal setting.
Yep, part 1 that you listened to last week.
And you're thinking, why the hell do I need 3 parts on goal setting? And we broke this down last week. We won't rehash it, but go back and listen to the first episode, which is it's harder than it seems in the way that if you actually want to have success at reaching your goals, doing it with intention and following a process is really the best way to actually achieve a goal.
Yep. Yeah. So it's about progression, right? So the reason we did break this into a 3-part series is because you have to progress through this process of goal setting, which we're laying out in front as a simplified, approach to it. Now, we're not giving you every, prescribed way to go about it. I think we talked about this. If you didn't do the exercise and listen to the last episode, go ahead and pause, go back, listen to that. But we gave you guys some things that we believe set you up for success when you're getting into the mode of goal setting, and also some pretty common pitfalls that you want to try to avoid. And so if you have listened, and welcome back if you had to pause and come in, we're going to start to build upon the exercise we left you with. So as a reminder, you should have in front of you, or at least nearby, the 5 sheets of paper that you did after last episode, which broke down the common 5 pillars of life, as they're referred to, and a current assessment of how you feel things are going in that area of your life.
Mm-hmm. And this next piece is really to try to identify, of all the things you wrote down, which can be a big bucket of stuff. You could have 100 things there. How do you choose what to choose? And the first step for us, and so we're going to walk you through at the end of the episode, the step-by-step on how to take those pieces.
Actually set it up as a goal, yeah.
But we'll talk about the methodology first. The first part that I think, when I started consuming material by Danielle Laporte, so again, we're not about reinventing the wheel on this show, but we'll cite sources that for us, we've pulled in a piece of their methodology. But Danielle Laporte has a methodology that is called desire mapping. And desire mapping is really about getting down to the nitty-gritty on how do you want to feel so you can do things that make you feel that way more frequently. And I think as a mom, and maybe as a parent in general, it was a really a big shift for me in goal setting, because it's really easy to prioritize all the things that are external to yourself, that feel good for other people or are going to be the right thing to do because you're supposed to do A, B, and C. It was really the first goal setting process that I really took an inventory of how do I really want to feel coming into this goal, coming out of this goal. So how do I want to feel, or what do I want to feel more of? And so that's how you can prioritize what goal to set. That's one mechanism to start doing it. So it's the process of identifying those feelings.
And I think if you're looking at those 5 pages, there's probably a good chance that you are feeling certain things as you look at that. As you look at what you wrote down on the paper, hopefully you're being moved in a certain direction. Hopefully that is by nature of just looking at the words that you put pen to paper and took that inventory. You're hopefully being moved in a certain direction. But I think if you're not, you need to start questioning sort of just in general, then put the papers to the side. You mentioned this, Stacie, between pushing the record button on the episode, actually, is that sometimes you just need to make a decision that I need more XYZ in my life right now. Mm-hmm. I need to feel like that, whatever that is. I have a reference point of a particular time in the last 6 to 9 to 12 to 18 months, and whatever that was, I need more of that in my life right now. And that should give you, again, a good reference point to say, now I look at where I can improve, and it will help me decide what's most important. The company that Stacie and I met at, we were big on that exact statement that I just said, determining what's most important. But what does that really mean? What's going to bring you the most value? Okay, well, what does that mean? Because it's different for everybody, right? I mean, you even talk about this in the employment setting, that what employees value, not only has it changed over the course of time significantly with different generations of employees, but it changes person to person. Hell, it changes for a person as they go through their year. At some particular point, what they value most is a paycheck. They value the money. Whatever is going on in their life, that's the most important thing. You go 6 months after they've built a savings account, and now they're and their significant other are, got a toddler in the house, whatever the case. You don't get a toddler in 6 months, but we're not going to get into how
Math
that process
hard.
works.
You could adopt.
You could. Wait, there you go. See, you just life vested me there. The priorities of your life at that circumstance may have changed, where now the financial reward is maybe 2 or 3 or 4 on their list, and it's about the integration of work and life, being able to have that time to unplug and be with the family, right? So that's just an exhaustive way of saying that. What is most important to you that gives you the feels, like you said, Stacie, and what you value? It should come out fairly clearly when you have this assessment and take this inventory of where you're at currently.
Yep.
What's missing.
And I think it creates a lens. That's how I always look at it. So going into 2020, ironically, my lens of feels was I wanted to feel more calm and safe and grounded. Like those were my feels coming into 2020 after my last year of just what felt like all kinds of change and chaos and insanity. And we came into 2020. Thank you. Well, the irony is, in navigating COVID and everything I've been through in 2020, another move, I'm really ending 2020 with exactly that lens, really within the lens of what I was prescribing. And so we're settled into our home, we're in a good rhythm as a family. We've kind of normalized to whatever this partial virtual school, partial in-person. And even if we flow back to virtual, we now really know what to expect and how to do it. So that change doesn't feel as chaotic as it has in the past. I did, so this is a good example. It creates a lens that you need to hold yourself accountable for when you're making decisions outside of that lens. So
Absolutely.
We added a puppy. Probably was not in my lens. Yeah, Nick added a puppy too. Right. So
Nick's in the puppy crew.
Now, that being said, he brings me joy and love and other feelings that are really important to me. But it's just a good way to
and puppy breath and
puppy
piddle
breath.
pads and
all those
nibble
things.
treats and
I love him so much. But it created something for my daughter that I felt like she really needed. So there was a reason, but it did make me pause. I went back 3 or 4 times before we said yes, because I was using that lens. Is this what I stated that I really wanted? So I think in the spirit of goal setting, defining the more of what you want to feel is a really important part of the process, because it will help you say yes and no to certain
Absolutely.
things that get you closer or farther away from your goal. Yep. And so that's the whole point here in starting to connect to the feeling.
Absolutely. Yeah. Sometimes you'll see, if you've researched any goal setting methodology or you're part of an organization that you are, at least have a piece or a seat at the table of the strategic planning process, some organizations or some individuals just call this applying a theme to your year. Mm-hmm. Let's just make it a year timeline. That's a typical one. Sometimes you can break it down by quarter. The theme is very synonymous with the feels, right? The theme of my year is, to your point in 2020, Stacie, calm, stability, safety. That's the theme. That's the feeling that you want. And it's so crucial to this goal setting process because, and I'm just reiterating what you said for the listener because it's so important. It allows you the guardrails to keep you in the lane that you've laid out for yourself and not allow you to detour. You said it allows you the power and the latitude to say no or yes based on whether or not whatever it is, whatever circumstance or opportunity or issue comes up, does it fall within the guardrails of my theme or my feels for this life, for this particular portion of my life, this quarter, this year, whatever it is.
And we used my 10K goal last time, so I'll use it again. I did this exercise, and some of my feels, my desire was to create more rhythm and predictability to my workout schedule. As an example, I was sort of getting up feeling uninspired about what I needed to do that day. I mean, I always do something, but I wanted to create more predictability for myself so I could, and it's efficient. You know, life is busy right now. So running is one of those things that for me, if I go and do it, I'm done pretty quick and it's like behind me for the day and I'm good. I'd say for our podcast, something Blake and I have talked, so just to say this out to our listeners, one thing for season 2 and for our goal is to be more connected to our listeners and more connected to what they're looking for, what they need, and what they want to hear about. So one of our goals, just as a podcast and as a partnership, is to, in season 2, create more deep connections to our listeners and our and viewers if you're on YouTube, and do that by feeling like you're part of something bigger. So we want to create something at Optimize that, you know, you're really part of the Optimized family and you're part of this movement that we're creating around making the really complex things we hear about in life super simple. So that as a stated goal for us, and that's the greater connectivity, which for Blake and I think I could speak for both of us, connectivity for both of us coming into 2021 is a big feeling that we want to generate more of, and it's very core to who we are.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, connectedness and community more than ever, I think, need to be such a highlight of our year. So let's, bring it back to this goal process. I think we can probably get right into the nitty gritty of this particular episode, Stacie. And I want people to think about what we've talked about thus far. And hopefully if you've had a theme or the feels come into mind, write that down. Now look back at those 5 pieces of paper, and you have to start now going through the exercise of whittling down the numerous opportunities of where you could put your time and attention down to what we talked about of what matters most that's going to bring you particularly the most value based on that theme or those feels. And so there's a couple different ways you can go at this. One, you can look at all 5 pages and you can just say, I'm going to create 1 to 3 goals in all of these different areas of my life. And then once I have that list, then I'm going to whittle it down. Or you can just say, look, I'm going to look at this opportunity list in front of me, and I'm going to pick one particular theme, one particular, bucket or pillar, and I'm going to say I'm going to focus my 1 to 3 goals on that. So I know, and this gets into, we talked before going into this, we need to really mention that the feels and the theme are sort of driven by your heart, right? Driven by your mind and what you really want to kind of to get from a desire standpoint. There also might be things completely out of your control. You might have some risks going on right now. Let's say you and your spouse are just not in the marriage that you need to be in. And that therefore determines that if you don't take action, you know the path that's going to end up on. So you are going to force your goals and your attention into the love and relationships pillar of your life. Let's say towards the end of this year, you had an unfortunate appointment with your family practitioner, and they say, hey, look, you need to make some significant changes, or I'm seeing all the markers of you heading towards a heart attack. Mm-hmm. And so you might have to, because of risk, be forced into the theme or the pillar of your life around health and fitness. So take those into account. And obviously, if those are major, major risks, you have to put your attention there first. But if you don't have any of those major things, then I would say that you need to really refer back to the theme. And again, the process is either A, make 1 to 3 goals for all of them and then whittle it down from there. By the way, all the other goals that you don't decide to focus on right away, they don't go away. The key to this is that they're over there in the hopper, right?
They're in
on
your
deck.
parking lot.
You get 3 that you're going to focus on, and you knock off the first one. The 10K example you mentioned in the last episode, Stacie, that it's in January, right? Scheduled in January. That is priority goal number 1, primarily due to the deadline that you're on. You're within 45 to 60 days of it. That comes off the list. You've got a whole nother parking lot of goals that one can flow right in. And then it goes to number 3 on your list, and number 2 goes to number 1, and number 3 goes to number 2. And you just start knocking off the next one. There's some overlap, of course. You can still work on multiple goals at the same time. That's not what I'm saying. But I think in terms of what you wake up every day knowing that I'm going to focus as much of my attention as I can on pushing this goal forward, when you can do it with that type of focus, you will achieve more. I mentioned in the last episode, it's been said a few different ways, but to focus on everything is to achieve nothing. What that means is if you spread yourself so thin, if I can put a picture in people's heads of like a football field, if I spread out just 50 footballs on one goal line, and I move one of them 5 yards, and then I go back and I move the next one 5 yards up, and I move them up, and I go move all 50 of them up 5 yards. In the time and effort and attention that it took me to move all 50 of those just 5 yards, had I just focused on that one first football and moved it 5 yards, and then moved it another 5 yards and another 5 yards, guess what? I would have scored that to the other goal line, and then I could have ran back down the field and grabbed the next ball. But I've achieved something first, which there's a lot of power in getting a goal across the damn finish line.
Yep.
Before you go back up and pick up the next damn ball.
Yep. And this is what we talked about last time as well. So the final step here is to identify, is this the macro goal, and do you need to break it into micro goals? So you might have, let's say, to use the example of if you have
Pontificate. Sorry, that's not...
No. It's
No?
pontificate?
Is that where we're using that?
No,
Okay.
we're not using
All
that.
right, well.
But you owe the swear jar for sure.
And James, that's for you, bud.
There you go. And I think what's interesting is people tend to gravitate towards macro goals because the imagining you at that goal is really attractive. But to Blake's point, we want to get you across the goal line. So if your goal, let's say you did have your family practitioner said, hey, you need to change what you're doing. And so your goal is to lose 40 pounds. We would highly encourage you to choose a micro goal underneath that feels achievable within a specific deadline.
And that you can celebrate, right?
Exactly. Mm-hmm. You can celebrate. So again, and that maybe is also connected to feels. So just to give you that particular example, if you're not somebody who's active at all, your family practitioner said, you need to lose X amount of weight, etc. Maybe something that connects the feels with feasibility, with your risk is I'm going to walk, and maybe your marriage, maybe there's something around your partnership. My spouse and I are going to take a 3-mile walk 4 days a week. So think about goals, micro goals also, and how can you really help yourself align on all of those areas? And I think that's a good place to start because it's always getting that first ball across the finish line. It's understanding you can achieve success. It's getting something, celebrating that win. And I think that's a good example of something that most people would agree that creates, if you're trying to create more connectivity and also momentum, create momentum, something like that type of goal really hits all of those areas that make for a really solid place to start.
Yeah, no, that's a fantastic point. I think if you can find an activity or a goal that you can go out and set and achieve that helps you improve in actually multiple areas of your life, that's probably a good sign that you're onto something. Mm-hmm. But the idea is that, you have to look at these grandiose goals for what they are. They're a target that you're setting in a direction for.
It's the Mount Everest.
Yes.
I always say that. Like you got to get to base camp 1.
You have to get to base camp, and
Mm-hmm.
and then you got to hire the right Sherpa, right?
Yep.
And they got to help and go along with you.
I have a Sherpa.
And that actually takes me to a point that I want to make is we've talked about, I think early on in this season, maybe around the first handful of episodes, about accountability, and we talked about accountability partners. So there's also another way to go about this when goal setting. So I think Stacie and I both agree. Obviously, if you go back to that episode, you can hear our opinions on accountability partners and the benefit of stating your goals publicly, sharing them with someone, and having that person take a role in your life where they're going to hold you accountable to doing what you said you're going to do. If you take it a step further, let's go back to your 10K, and you say, hey, listen, I want to run a 10K. and you come to somebody and don't make them accountability partners, but make them a goal partner. They want to take an active role in achieving the exact same goal. You say, like, let's run this thing together. Who wants to, I've got some fitness minded people. I've got a couple people in my circle that, they want to get their health back on track. And so I'm going to take this goal that I've created for myself and I'm going to take it to them. And I'm going to ask who wants to participate in this with me. And then we're all together in this effort. That goes a long way in helping you achieve this, because now you have group, like herd mentality sort of a thing around what are we going to do? We're not going to do, the happy hour with the, cheeseburger and the 6-pack. Instead, we're all going to go walk and, whatever. But it's just about having like-minded people around that are helping push you, because they also have a vested interest in achieving the same exact goal.
Yeah. And I would say in the example that we gave around, taking a 3-mile walk with your spouse, only select that if your spouse is bought in. I think this has happened as I've launched corporate wellness in my career, that, your significant other does have a dramatic effect on your ability sometimes to achieve, especially goals related to food and movement and finance, right? So I think having a very serious conversation about if that is if that's a goal that you want to set, you do need commitment and buy-in from the other person, because otherwise, it's going to be very easy to derail one another in that and the spouse partner relationship is so emotionally connected to one another. I've never seen, it's very rare that I'll watch a couple that one ends up staying on that path and the other derails. There's just such a connectivity related to that. So to Blake's point, if you want to have more connection with your spouse, I think that's really important. And we obviously want to support that if that's one of your goals. But if taking a 3-mile walk as part of that connective process is not feasible for the other person, and you still need to check the box of doing something related to movement because of your risk factors, make a different choice of that accountability partner. In other words, if you have something that's high risk, high feels, and you don't want that to be undermined, make sure that that's in your circle of influence, which we've talked about. Make sure that's in your circle of influence where you have direct, capable influence over the outcome, and it's not outside of your control. So I know that's a lot of information, but to kind of go back start from, you have the 5 sheets from last time. Let us step you really quickly right now through the process.
Yeah. So here's one last thing on that topic. I think if you feel comfortable doing it and you can get the spouse to buy in to set your goals together, I think that's the best path forward, because I think you have to understand that with all these goals, we don't highlight it enough that there's typically sacrifices that come along with it. And so when you're in a partnership like a marriage, any sacrifices that are made by one person, they are to varying levels, but they're still impacted to the other person as well. They're still connected. And so I think the better that a husband and wife, a spouse, marital relationship, or even just 2 significant others that are cohabitating, when you have this process and you guys can do it together, that does not mean that every goal is going to be shared.
Right. That's
not what I'm saying too. I think the highlight of the point is that you're involving them in the process, because you will need that support. Even if they're not directly involved in the goal, you'll need the support of them knowing what you're focused on, why you're focused on it. And that gets us into what you were talking about the process. So what you're going to do now that you're ready to determine what are my goals going to be, at least what are the starting goals going to be, first things first, name your goal. Mm-hmm. Put a name to it. Put something on it that you can remind. Make it simple, make it short. I've seen all kinds of ways of doing this. I've seen people draw out goals that are 3 sentences long, damn near a paragraph, and it's got every bit of the goal information in it. I recommend you don't do that. My personal recommendation, I think you keep it short, you keep it sweet, you keep it something, piffy and punchy, and think tagline. Mm-hmm. I guess that's the marketing, think something really that's going to grab your attention. Second thing, this goes to what Stacie was talking about the feels. You have to answer the question, why does this goal matter to me? Mm-hmm. What are the things that are impacted by this goal? Why do I care? What's going to happen if I don't do this goal? You have to look at it from those different angles and sort of answer in a couple sentences, why is it important to do this, to focus on it?
Yep. And so my named goal is 10K target. So that's what I named my goal. And I sort of did a visual for myself as well. That's just me. I'm a visual person. And then, it's starting to, again, reconnect. And what I would say that we'll talk a little bit about on the next episode is how do you keep going is starting to connect back to those feels as you start down this road. So for this episode, start step 2 in this process if you did your step 1, and then we'll be back next week with step 3. And one thing I would remind you of in coming into this third step is there is no such thing as a perfect time. We mentioned 1-1 there's nothing magic about 1-1. I am partners with someone in life that is a bit of a perfectionist about, I want all my I's dotted and T's crossed. We, have our best self journals, and he wants to fill it out in a way that feels really organic and good to him. And I'm over there like propping mine up in bed, just like scribbling with a pencil. Like I'm about like, get it on the paper. So everybody's different. So his process is his process and my process is my process. And just keep in mind that there is no such thing as a perfect time. Just because it's 1/1/2021, how did that all work for us in 1/1/2020? So, there's nothing magic about the start of a year or the start of a month or the start of a week even. People always say, I'm going to start that on Monday. There's nothing magic about starting something on that day. It's whatever you choose. Yeah, so as you start to go down this road.
Yeah, there's a reason they say, there's no better time than now, right? Don't put off till tomorrow what you can accomplish. There's all kinds of reasons why these sayings have been with us for years, decades. So please join us for the next episode. We're going to actually take that goal setting process even further. You've got the name of your goal. You've got the why. You've answered, why does this thing matter to me? We're going to take you through the next steps in making that goal complete, incorporating all the other elements of a good goal. And then we're also going to wrap that in a system to help you achieve at a higher rate of success the goals that you put out in front of yourself. So thank you for joining us as always on the Optimize AF podcast, and we will see you guys next time.
Hey guys, thanks for listening to our show. You can find Blake and I on social media channels at Blake Rayhans and at Stacie Mallon.
Be sure to follow Optimized AF on Instagram and rate and subscribe to this podcast on iTunes. See you next time.